So everyone and their mom is telling you to install Claude skills. Paste this line, clone this repo, look at what the skill does. But almost nobody actually tells you what a skill is. I built 18 skills myself, and I don't write code. So in this video, I'm going to share what a skill action is, the 3 ways to make your own, and whether any of this is actually safe to use. So let's get right into it. If you're new here, I'm Victor. I built and sold a 50-person company before I turned 25. Then I worked at companies like Apple, Adobe, and Cisco. And over the past 3 years, I've used AI to run every part of my life. On this channel, I share the exact workflows that I use daily. And now back to talking about what a skill actually is. So here's what I keep seeing. Someone makes a video saying, clone this repo. 160,000 people go ahead and do it, and you scroll into the comment section and it's pretty much all the same thing. People saying, I had no idea this was possible. What did I actually just install? And things like that, which, you know, it's a kind of weird place to be, right? You got the thing running, but you still can't say what it actually is. So today, let's fix that first. Then I'll run my business idea evaluator skill live here in the video, and I'll also give that away for free at the end of the video. So let's get on with it. So first things first, a skill is not, I repeat, not a prompt. A prompt is one single message. You send it once, you get something back, and then it's gone. A skill is more like a saved way of working. It's just a small file that sits there and doesn't really do anything until you actually need it. Then it just tells Claude, for this specific job, here are the steps to take, here's what's finished look like, and you just teach Claude once. And then you just ask. That's more or less the whole idea, honestly. The rest is just where a skill comes from, and there are 3 specific places. A good way of picturing it is like a new person joining your team at work. Week 1, you're explaining every single little step, one thing at a time to this new hire. But by month 2, you just tell them the client wants this thing done, and the new hire just goes on and does it. A prompt keeps you in week 1 forever, but a skill is how you get to month 2, 3, 4, 5, and onwards. And most people actually never give their AI a month 2 because they just assume that making a skill is super duper hard. But the newest way to create a skill that 99% of people have never even heard of doesn't even need your words. So let's have a look at that. So without further ado, there's a very important new button that I want you to know about because Claude only just launched it. So open the plus menu to the left-hand side of the prompt area where you actually write a prompt or write anything to Claude. And you'll see record a skill, just like in the screenshot on the left-hand side of the screen here. You press record and then you just do the job, whatever it is that you want to do on your own screen, in your own time, the way you would always do it. And Claude is just going to watch your screen and then turn what you did into a skill, a number of steps that you can pretty much run whenever you want to. Claude is just going to remember exactly what you did and then do the exact same steps that you asked it to do. It's pretty darn cool. So for anything that's mostly clicking the same 5 steps in the same tabs every single week, day in, day out, you don't actually have to describe that job at all. You just have to show Claude doing the job one time. And that is the easiest way by far for someone who doesn't code, like myself, for example. No file, no formatting, no words to get it right. You work, Claude takes notes and actually takes pictures. And that covers a lot of skill use cases, but unfortunately not the thing that usually eats away at my week. So when do you actually bother making a skill? Well, I've got a simple rule for this. If I ever catch myself pasting the same thing twice, then that's a skill. That's it. That's the whole test. And if the job has more than 1 step to it, even better. Like go find the stuff, tidy it up, get it into a format, and then put it somewhere. That's definitely a skill. Because those are both jobs that quietly eat away at your week or your day. And I know what they cost because I did it the hard way for years. So at my daytime job, I actually used to do customer research First of all, before AI, it took like 8-10 hours doing it. With AI, I used the same 3 steps every single time. One prompt to find the information, the second prompt to clean it all up, and a third prompt to squash it into something shorter and punchy enough, I guess, to actually fit into a PowerPoint slide. And then I'd have to copy everything into the PowerPoint presentation, make it fit, change the colors to match the logo of the customer I was presenting to. And it was definitely better than doing it all manually, which I did for a decade before AI, but it was still a tedious process. And because ultimately, I never actually sat down and did all the 3 things in one go. I don't think anyone actually does that. What I did is start the first bit, and then AI had to think, and something else came up. I got an email, a Slack message, and I'd go and do that thing instead. And when I got back an hour later, I didn't really remember where I was in terms of like making or doing the research. And sometimes, honestly, quite often, I never just got back to it at all. And the research just sat there half done for a week or 2. So what actually ended up costing me a ton of time and energy was all the back and forth and context switching. The typing part for actually writing stuff was the easy. So a skill does the whole chain in one go, on its own. You ask once, the skill just runs the research, cleans the research up, and puts everything in the right format. Same work really, but the skill doesn't need me to remember to come back between each part of the job, and that's the part I never valued properly until I actually had a skill built out and installed. Now, recording part of creating a skill is great when the job is mostly clicking, but most of what eats my typical week oftentimes isn't clicking. So for the tasks where you kind of have to think, you're probably back to having to write a file. My problem was that I didn't know the format, I didn't want to open a terminal, and that's exactly where I got stuck. For about a year actually. And the way out was so stupidly simple that I was slightly embarrassed it took me that long to actually get to writing my first skill. Because here's the thing, you don't actually have to write the skill. You just ask Claude to create a skill for you. So you open Claude and you just say, I want a skill that does this specific job, and the finished thing should look something like this. Can you build the skill for me? And Claude is just going to write the file, and then you just run the skill, say what was potentially wrong, and Claude is going to fix that to the skill as well. That's the door. I'm not a developer, and I have never wanted to be one either. I just stopped assuming I had to be one. And you can be pretty rough with what you're asking Claude. You don't have to be that detailed even. For example, you don't even need the exact right words for creating a skill. The shape I use is just 3 simple bits. Here's the job I keep doing. Here's the outcome I want at the end. Can you build me the skill? That's the whole ask. No code, no terminal, and if the first version is a bit off, you just tell Claude what's off, and it's gonna go ahead and fix it for you. So now let me stop describing this and just run a skill and show you what it looks like. So the skill I want to show you is kind of personal actually. I get new ideas pretty much constantly. My brain just goes on 24/7. It's business ideas, project ideas, things I could build. And for about 30 years, I chased pretty much all of them. So I built a skill whose only job is to argue with me about an idea before I commit any time and or money into that idea. So this is the one skill I promised you at the beginning of the video, so let's go into the demo. Alright, we're in testing mode again, and today we are going to test the business idea evaluator skill that I use whenever I get a new business idea to try to actually convince me, in all honesty, that I shouldn't spend any time and or money on that specific business idea. Because I have taught Claude, or any LLM for that matter, my second brain knowledge management system that I have locally on my computer knows everything about me, my family, my life ambitions, my goals in life, where I am today, where I want to be tomorrow, and in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. So it's going to know if it's a good or bad idea for me to pursue a specific business idea. Let's try this one out. Let's come up with something on the spot here. I'm considering building an AI app to help people pick the right donuts when they're in the grocery store. If they should have one with glazing on or no glazing, or the standard donut or a special donut, because I really feel like people could use that. And then I'll have a subscription service in that application. Let's see what the business idea evaluator skill says about this business idea. Now it's going to start thinking. Let's check back when we're done. All right, we're back. We got a couple of questions here from Claude. Straight up, is the donut app a real venture you'd fund or a test/joke to see if I'd rubber stamp it? Okay, so Claude is smarter than you'd think when you're on Opus 5. I do want to test the skill. Let's go dead serious, score. Demand evidence. Has any human tried to pay you or anyone for donut selection advice? No one has, it's my hunch. What would you actually risk on it? Capital and hours per week? Oh, maybe 1,000. Who is the payer and why would they pay monthly for this rather than just picking a donut? No good answer yet. It's not looking great for our business idea so far. With that being said, I'm gonna pause the video again and check back in a couple of seconds. With the magic of video, I will be back soon. All right, we are back. Took about 5 minutes and we have a couple of responses here. First of all, it just says kill, but what I want to show you is the typical output I usually get, which is an HTML format instead of reading this in chat. It's much more visible. I like it better, so I'll jump right over into the HTML output. All right, here's a cleaned version that doesn't show any of my other personal information for demo purposes. So here we have it. The Donut Picker AI got a score of 44 out of 100, which I think is still higher than it actually deserves. The score got kill, which it also does deserve. Here's some of the information that we included. And then it's going to rate on different things. So like complexity, 10x. Imagine the business 10 times bigger. What has to grow with it? Code or people? Why we look at it? If every new customer needs proportionally more humans, cost scale with revenue and margins never improve. That is threshold, not a grind through problem. How to read it? High scales on code and automation, low every sales add headcount and complexity. This, of course, being an application, scales super well. That's why it's scoring 9 out of 10, despite the poor business idea. And margin is, of course, for the same reason. Demand reality, we look at the demand if people would actually buy this. Burning problems, 0 out of 6. Of course, this is not a burning problem for anyone. And time family fit, right sized. So this is a personal fit based on what the AI knows about me. I think it stripped away a bunch of stuff here right now, but the fit is of course not great. So we can see some pros and cons for this specific idea. Downside, genuinely tiny, 1,000 euros in 2 weekends. So the downside is not massive. Strongest dimension by far is clarity. A stranger will get it in one single sentence and it is absurd enough to be shareable. If it ever worked, the shape is right. 90% margin, pure code, 0 humans added per user. I built an AI donut picker in a weekend. It's a better video than a business idea, which I agree with. Cons, 0 demand. Choose a donut. Takes 4 seconds and choosing it is the enjoyable part. The app actually removes a small part of the pleasure. It's not a pain. Net new direction with nothing behind it. It does not advance a single goal already committed to this year. This is the filtered out version. So in the real version that I did initially, this tied way better into my goals and ambitions. But yeah, this is the clean version for the demo of this video. The scarce resource is not 1,000 euros, it's the weekends. This quarter is already spoken for, and those hours have higher value alternatives. Again, this is like filtering out my personally identifiable information. But what this means is I have told my AI that I want to spend time with my family, my kids, my newborn, my wife. And of course, spending weekends building a donut app is going to take away from that goal. Anyway, this is the exact skill that you can download for free in the description below. But now I shared with you what a skill actually could look like and how it can add value to your life. So back to the presentation. So I don't know if you noticed what the skill actually did there, but it didn't just agree with me. The skill asked me things first: who this is for, what it would cost, how long before anyone actually would like to pay for it. And then it scored the idea and told me where it was weak. It's my first gate right now. If I ever come up with something new that I really want to do to avoid shiny object syndrome, and if something actually gets through, I'll probably take it really seriously. Maybe I'll also run it by my wife, who is advice I really trust and value. And if it's close, I've got a second skill, my LLM Council, that I gave away in a separate video 2 weeks ago, which runs an argument between 5 vastly different views, but that's a whole other video. Anyway, I put my idea filter skill in the description below, of course, free of charge. That skill asks you about your own goals first, so what the skill potentially pushes back on is based on your life plan and not mine. There's a version for Claude and a plain prompt if you're also using ChatGPT or any other LLM of your choice. But the reason I actually trust a skill that tells me no at the end of the day is that I really had to learn this the hard way, which is the part I actually wanted to tell you about. Because for a really long time, I thought that none of this was for me. I'd watch people on YouTube building stuff that was so incredible, but I thought like, well, he can code and I can't, so that's the ceiling. I am a creative guy and I build things. I've always built things and been creative, but I never done it with code really. And I'd really made my peace with that. I didn't really mind, but the ceiling actually wasn't the code at all. Essentially, I was just starting from zero every single morning, while people slightly smarter than me or just braver at the end of the day had taught their AIs one or several different skills. And for the record, I got it wrong plenty on the way there. My first skill was a morning briefing thing. I built it because every single video on YouTube that I watched told me to build a morning briefing. It pulled like half of my email inboxes and skipped the other half. Some days it just forgot my calendar. I forced the morning brief for about 2 weeks and then quietly stopped using it. And I blamed myself for a really long time, but now when I look back, it just wasn't the right skill to build for me. But it did teach me the one rule that I use right now when I'm building skills. And that's the rule I want to give you today instead. Because it's the one, honestly, that I wish someone gave me back in the day. Don't build a skill you saw on YouTube. Build the thing you already do by hand. Preferably the boring one, the one you did last Tuesday, and you'll probably do again next Tuesday. Because that one thing tends to work. You already know what good looks like, so you can always tell Claude when it's wrong or when it's off, right? And one more thing, and this is the one I promised at the start of the video. One specific question that I've seen in the comment field of almost every one of these skill-based videos, and almost nobody addresses it or answers it, but I figure I'd bring it up in my video. You're about to paste a line of code or a line of information that puts a stranger's files onto your laptop. Is that actually safe? And look, I'm not gonna pretend that there's no risk here, because there actually is. But luckily, there are multiple ways to check a skill without knowing anything about cybersecurity. I do this all the time. The first way, and the easiest way, ask your best AI model, whether that's Opus 5 or ChatGPT 5.6 Sol, to actually read and review the skill and tell you if there's any dangers in there, and if it is, tell the model to fix whatever turns up. The second one, which I honestly personally like even more, is telling your AI of choice, preferably a smart one, to actively try to break the skill, or anything you build for that matter, from a security point of view. I actually did this myself a couple of weeks ago on something that I'd built. My AI broke in, patched the hole, and then went again and tried to break it, but couldn't get back through. And I understood maybe half of what the model told me, which is fine, because sometimes you don't always have to understand the answer, as long as you remember to ask the question. So this week, do one thing. Think of the job you did by hand last week, and that you'll probably do again this week. Open Claude, say what the job is and what you want at the end, and ask for the skill. You'll have a brand new skill set up and running in a matter of minutes. We now know a skill is a safe way of working. You get one by asking rather than writing, and you can check a skill by telling AI to attack it. You now know more about skills than 99% of people currently installing them. The ID filter skill is free in the description below, both for Claude and ChatGPT users. No code needed. Now go build the boring thing first, because that is the one that's probably going to stick around running in 6 months' time. I do new videos every week, so subscribe if this is your kind of thing, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.